This is guidance for Edexcel GCSE 9-1 Writing Foundation Task 2. This is a task of approximately 40 to 50 words and is marked out of 16. If you go significantly over the 40 to 50 words, the whole task will be marked and taken into account. However, if you go underneath 40 to 50 words, you're unlikely to be able to score particularly highly up the marking scheme. It is probably a good idea, where possible, to write in paragraphs or certainly mini paragraphs so that the examiner can identify which of the bullet points you are answering. To start with, it's very important that you know your question words as the task is presented in German, and this will obviously help you decode and understand what you are doing. So wie, how, welcher, welches, welcher, which, was, what, wie oft, of course, how often, was für, what kind of and what type of, warum, why, wo, where. Then there are some words which will help you understand which part of the task is in the future. Pläne, nächsten, nächster, nächstes, Zukunft, future. Thirdly, there are some words here that you perhaps don't see that often, and they are related to formal language. Sie means you, and ihr, possibly with endings on it, means your. So these are words to help you understand the task. The task is a formal task, so you're unlikely to use the words du or dein. They would be replaced by sie or ihr. Now, in terms of the vocabulary that you will need to produce for the task, 75% of that vocabulary will be using the present tense. So, ich spiele, ich arbeite, ich trage, wir tragen, wir arbeiten, wir spielen, and 25% of that will be future tense. So I'll draw your attention first to the specifically formal language. There are some examples here. So, Sie können, you polite can, or you polite are able to. You can use man kann, very useful. Sie könnten, you could. Notice it always has an en ending if it's sie. Man könnte, you could. Man sollte, you should, or one should. Es gibt, perfectly acceptable for formal language. Then if you want to address someone directly, capital S, regardless of where it is in the sentence. So if it's in the middle of the sentence, it still needs to be a capital S. Sie spielen, you are playing, or you play. Sie tragen, you are wearing, or you wear. And of course, if you want to be referring to a particular noun, like, I don't know, your daughter, you would write ihre Tochter, your son, ihr Sohn, or your children, ihre Kinder. So that's something else you need to be aware of. In terms of productive vocabulary for the future tense, you will is sie werden. Then it's most likely that you're going to be talking about the environment will, die Umwelt wird, the town will, die Stadt wird, the pupils will, die Schüler werden. So that's in terms of the sort of more formal vocabulary that you're going to need to be able to write. That's sort of a very brief summary. Some other brief extra guidance. So we've already said it is 40 to 50 words. It is formal language. You should try to keep your language simple. You should only be using present tense and future tense, no past tense at all. You should be using link words. You can use aber, denn, oder, und. You could also use maybe das, double S, das, ich finde das, ich denke das, that's considered a link word, or maybe obwohl, nothing else. There might be a simple structure you could use, which I may show you on a subsequent slide. Opinions you must give. They can be kept relatively simple. Ich finde, ich mag, ich hasse, ich liebe, ich denke, das ist gut, ich denke, dass das gut ist. And when it comes to understanding the instructions, we call that rubrics. I think you're going to have to, hopefully you'll be able to decode knowing your was für, your wie, but if not, make sure you use what you do understand on the instructions to help you decode anything else. So for example, if there's one bullet point you can't decode, but you know that the first three are in present tense, the fourth one's probably going to be in future. This is the marking scheme, and again we'll really just jump straight to the 7 to 8. You've got to give appropriate information that will need to cover all 4 points in order to get into this 7 to 8 bracket. You make some basic points and there is some development. That means some of the ideas you give some extra information about. You use language to present simple facts and information, note down key points and use simple ideas. You use independently selected. That means you don't just use vocabulary which is in the instruction, you've chosen it yourself. Common and familiar vocabulary, so they're not looking for anything particularly exciting here. And most importantly, you've got to keep the register and style. So if you are using you, use Z with a capital Z or ihr with a capital I to mean your. Second part is also marked out of 8, and this is relating to the knowledge and accuracy. You should use straightforward grammatical structures and you can repeat them. So if you use es gibt twice, it's not the end of the world. You must link your structures together and you must have present and future references. Now future could be, you could use, for example, I'm planning to, or I hope to, or I would like to, or I would really like to. So ich würde gern, ich möchte. That would all count as long as you have used a future time phrase. For example, in the future, I would like to. In der Zukunft möchte ich. So this is an example of the layout of a task. I'm not going to go into detail about the task just for a minute, but you will get the task presented to you in German. It will address you as Sie, so you. So you need to be able to understand that. It will tell you who wants information, and then it will go on to say that you need to write a formal response. It might be in the form of an email, but that's irrelevant really. It needs to be a formal response and that you should include this information. Now as you can see, there are 4 bullet points. Got to write 40 to 50 words, so you're aiming for between 10 and about 13 words per bullet point. It might be that one bullet point is 9 words and the next bullet point is 20 words. I would try and keep it even if you can. The foundation task will always give you the start and finish of your formal writing. So dear Mrs. Decker or dear sir or madam, and at the end with friendly greetings, the German equivalent of yours sincerely or yours faithfully or whatever. So let's go into this task in a little bit more detail. So arbeiten means work. So we know you are working in, because that's present tense. You're working in a secretariat, or it's got to be something to do with secretaries, in a German secondary school. This particular family wants, because that comes from wollen, information about school. You have to write a formal answer with this information. The first thing I need to do is make sure I understand these question words. So I know wo means where the school is, wie das Gebäude ist, how, I think that's the building is. Was man in der Pause machen kann. What one can do at break. Und Events an der Schule im nächsten Halbjahr. So events at school in the next half year. So that one is my future. That's going to be, the other three are going to be present tense. So as long as I remember that, I have to include opinions, and I must make sure that I use the future tense for the last section, that I remember to link. Okay, let's look at doing a sample answer. So, formal answer. So first thing I've got to do is say where the school is. So I could say something like, Ich besuche eine gemischte Gesamtschule, die Beacon heißt. And that's actually quite complicated. I'm going to take a slightly easier standpoint, okay, because we only have to use simple structures here. So I'm going to say, die Schule, I'm going to say my school, because this is a little bit more formal. So die Schule ist in Crowborough. Right, then I'm going to say that Beacon is a comprehensive. So, Beacon ist eine Gesamtschule and I want to link, because I've got to remember to link, and there are girls and boys. Und es gibt Jungen und Mädchen here. Now remember, we only have to do between 40 and 50 words. So we've already done 16. So almost half of the total amount we have to do. Now we've got to say what the building is like, or the buildings. We could use the building. So one building is das Gebäude, but we've got lots of buildings. So I'm going to say there are lots of big buildings in the school. So I'm going to say, es gibt viele große Gebäude here. So I have used the plural of buildings, and you don't add anything onto the end for that. Perhaps I'll name one or two of the buildings. I'm going to use a different structure. I'm going to use wir haben. We have a sports hall and what else? And a small library. Und eine kleine Bibliothek. Now it asked me what they were like, how the building is, and I think I've done that by saying that they are large but with a small library. Right, the third point is what can one do at break. Now I'm going to use part of the vocabulary in there as my stimulus for this one. So at break, what can you do in break in Beacon? Well, actually you can eat in the canteen, or you can speak to your friends. So in der Pause, now it's not man kann, because I've got to use word order too. So kann man in der Kantine essen, or eat with friends, oder mit, speak with friends, sorry, mit Freunden sprechen, or you can use plaudern, which is to chat. Now I said I had to add opinions, and so far actually I haven't put an opinion in, so I either have to do that on the last paragraph, or I have to go back and insert one. I think I will insert one at the end of my first section. I'm just going to use a very basic opinion. Ich finde die Schule toll. I have to refer to future events, and for that last section, a bit tricky, I could say that next year there is an exchange and I would like to go to Germany. That would give me my future tense. I think I'm just going to keep it simple, and again I'm going to take some of the vocabulary from the stimulus, and I'm going to say in the next 6 months there will be a sport event. Im nächsten Halbjahr wird es ein Sportevent geben. Now, that's actually slightly more difficult vocabulary actually, because you've got future tense there, es wird geben, you've got future tense there of es gibt. And then I'm also going to add an opinion. I'm going to say ich denke, comma, dass es wunderbar ist. Now I've gone way over the word count just to sort of show you approximately how it's got to look. Which I think it's only 62 words, so it's not way over. It will all be marked and it will all count. So have I done everything I said I was going to do? Well, I haven't got a lot of room here, but I have made 4 distinct points, and that addresses those 4 bullet points. I have used a future tense there by using wird and geben. I have said what we're going to do at break. I have said what the building is like, and I have mentioned where the school is. It is in Crowborough. I have given some extra details. That is allowed, and that is where you have developed points. I have given some opinions. Haven't actually used a lot of link words. But I do see that I have managed to use und in the first bullet point. I've used und here, but that's not really linked together. I have used oder, and I have used a das, so I think I should be alright. So here is another example. Have a look at it again. The instruction is for you, Sie arbeiten, so you're working a tourist information in your town. That's actually incorrect, actually. That should say in Ihrer Stadt, because it's going to be formal. Frau Schmidt von einer deutschen Schule will Informationen über die Stadt. So Mrs. Schmidt wants information about the town. You've got to write a formal answer saying where the town is, what there is for tourists there, how the transport links in town are, and what the school group next week visit can. Okay, so that's obviously my future. Remember, I've got to include opinions. I've got to include a future, and the rest is going to be in present, and I must link. So this is what I've written for the first bullet point. Die Stadt Crowborough liegt in Südostengland in der Nähe von Tunbridge Wells. So I've given a very brief description of where the town is. And here is what I have written for the second bullet point. What is there in the town for tourists? So I've said Crowborough ist sehr interessant für Touristen. So I've given a kind of introductory statement for this section. Es gibt einen großen Dom und die Altstadt. Persönlich finde ich die Altstadt interessant. Actually, I've used interessant. Well, I know some really quite good adjectives, actually. Impressive, beeindruckend. But you can just use another adjective. Okay, because we've got to be, it doesn't have to be complicated. Right, so I have lied, and that's allowed. If you can't think of the things that Crowborough has, nobody's going to come and visit it. Right, third bullet point is about transport. I'm not so confident on this one, so I think it's going to be quite short. Something about transport, so I think I'll just say something like there is a bus stop. No, I don't know the word for bus stop. There is a bus to Tunbridge Wells every day. So I've written es gibt jeden Tag einen Bus nach Tunbridge Wells. I have to do time, manner, place. So that makes sense word order wise. It's asked me what it's like, so perhaps I should give an opinion. I'm just going to say der Bus ist immer spät. So it's always late. I haven't done a lot of linking in this piece. I must do that in a moment. So now I have to say what the school group will or can visit next week, and I must link. So for this last one, I haven't actually said what the school can visit. I've said what the school will visit. And I've written, nächste Woche wird die Schulgruppe das Kino besuchen und es gibt einen Krimi. So I have linked. I think I'm a bit closer on the word count here as well. There is one more example on the next slide. So one final example Sie arbeiten in einem Hotel in der Stadt. Or again, I've written deine, it should be ihre. Let me correct that. In ihrer Stadt, because that's what you will see on the instruction. Die Familie Braun will Informationen über das Hotel für einen Besuch. Schreiben Sie eine formelle Antwort mit diesen Informationen. Wo das Hotel liegt, was es im Hotel gibt, was für Mahlzeiten man im Hotel bekommen kann, Events im Hotel in den nächsten Monaten. Now, try and translate that task. Pause this video whilst you do so. Now, remember, you've got to use a future tense, you've got to link, and you've got to give some opinions. Can you identify where those might be? So, future tense, I've got to remember to use here. Link words. I'm just going to make a list on my piece of paper, and then hopefully I'll remember to include them. And I also have to give an opinion. Draft out some ideas, and I will type up an example that you could use. Pause the video here to write your own example. Okay, and this is a sample response. So I had to say where the hotel lies, what there is in the hotel, what type of meals you can get, and something about the events in the next months. So I said, das Hotel liegt in Südostengland an der Küste. Es ist ein sehr schönes Hotel und hat 5 Sterne. Sterne is stars. You don't have to say that. So I've got to say what there is in the hotel. Im Hotel gibt es ein tolles Restaurant und ein großes Schwimmbad. Die Gäste lieben die Terrasse auch. So what type of meals can you get? Im Restaurant kann man Halbpension bekommen. Now you don't have to say Halbpension. You could just say Frühstück bekommen or Frühstück und Abendessen bekommen. Now I've used slightly more complicated vocabulary here. I've said I recommend. Ich empfehle Fisch und Pommes, weil das lecker ist. So I've used weil to link. What I have to talk about, what the events that are coming up, I've only done one. And I have said next weekend, nächstes Wochenende gibt es ein Bierfest im Hotel, wo man viel Bier trinken kann. Die Gäste finden das super. Now, even though on this last section I have not actually used the past tense, future tense, I should still be able to access full marks because I have referred to a future event. It's just I have used the present tense.